Having wrapped up his official visit to Egypt, President Lee Jae-myung now heads to South Africa to attend the Group of 20 summit, where he is expected to expand his multilateral diplomacy. The annual trilateral culture ministers meeting between South Korea, China, and Japan has been put on hold as the diplomatic tensions between Beijing and Tokyo build up over Taiwan. South Korean stocks plummeted on Friday as investors' fears over an AI bubble came back to take a toll on big-cap tech shares. The Korean won fell to the lowest level in 7 months against the US dollar on massive foreign stock selling. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung is now on his way to South Africa for his first attendance at the G20 summit after having wrapped up a summit with his Egyptian counterpart in Cairo. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min leads us tonight.
The Korea-Egypt summit began with an official welcome by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi for visiting President Lee Jae-myung at the presidential palace in Cairo. During the nearly 2-hour-long talks on Thursday, the two leaders addressed regional peace.
한국과 이집트는 평화 촉진자로서 한반도와 중동을 포함한 국제 평화에 함께 기여하기로 하였습니다.
We agreed upon the need to deepen global peace and support for peace in the Middle East and on the Korean Peninsula.
The main idea of interest was bolstering a bilateral partnership as the two countries celebrate 30 years of diplomatic ties. South Korea and Egypt will work together on the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, to expand bilateral economic partnership.
세파는 광범위한 경제 협력을 뒷받침할 중요한 제도적 기반이 될 것입니다.
AI, communications, as well as science and ICT are important in particular.
President Lee expressed hopes that the two countries also cooperate on the defense industry, such as F-A-50 aircraft, building upon their joint production of the K9 self-propelled howitzer. MOUs were signed to bolster cooperation on culture and education.
Concluding the Korea-Egypt summit, President Lee will head to South Africa to attend the G20 summit for talks on sustainable growth and fairness at a time of increasing global uncertainties. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Cairo.
And after his summit with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President Lee Jae-myung delivered a lecture at Cairo University. There, he presented the administration's vision for the broader Middle East. Our Presidential Office correspondent Song Yu-jin reports.
Peace, prosperity, and culture. These are the three pillars of President Lee Jae-myung's Middle East strategy, unveiled during his lecture at Cairo University on Thursday, one of the oldest and largest universities in the region.
샤인 이니셔티브를 제안드리고자 합니다. S는 스테빌리티, 안정을, H는 하모니, 조화를, I는 이노베이션, 혁신을, N은 네트워크를, E는 education, 교육을 뜻합니다.
For stability and harmony, Lee announced that South Korea will contribute $10 million to the Egyptian Red Crescent Society to support humanitarian efforts in Gaza. He praised Egypt's leadership in mediating the Israel-Hamas ceasefire and said South Korea will join President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's Gaza reconstruction plan. Moving to innovation, Lee promised tailored cooperation designed to support the economic development of each Middle Eastern partner.
에너지, 건설 분야 협력을 공고히 하는 한편 인공지능, 수소 등 미래 혁신 분야로 협력의 지평을 확대하겠다는 약속을 드립니다.
He says it's now South Korea's turn to give back, highlighting how the country's rapid development was made possible by economic ties with the Middle East, including oil, natural gas, and large-scale construction partnerships. For network and education, the president emphasized the power of people-to-people exchange.
사람과 사람이 자주 만나는 것만큼 서로의 문화를 함께 배우며 성장하는 일만큼 양국의 우호 관계를 단단하게 만들 동력은 없습니다.
For this, Yi vowed to expand university exchange programs, increase scholarships and training opportunities, and create more pathways for Middle Eastern students to study in Korea. He also pledged to broaden cultural cooperation across food, fashion, beauty, and history to deepen mutual understanding. President Yi concluded his nearly 20-minute speech by calling on the young audience to play a leading role in making the Shine Initiative truly shine in real life. 송유진, Arirang News.
Also, while in Cairo, President Lee Jae-myung met with members of the Korean community in Egypt on Thursday. Reflecting on his summit with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi earlier in the day, President Lee said Seoul and Cairo will significantly expand cooperation across culture, the economy, and defense. He added that the Korean community's role and presence in Egypt will expand as bilateral ties deepen. He also expressed his determination to establish a direct flight route between South Korea and Egypt. This was the first meeting of its kind between a South Korean president and the Korean community in Egypt since 2006. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi says her stance on China-Japan relations remains unchanged, reaffirming the direction that she agreed on with Chinese President Xi Jinping during their summit last month. Now, Takaichi stressed on Friday that Tokyo is committed to building a mutually beneficial and stable relationship with Beijing. On security issues, she said, any decision on whether a situation constitutes a survival-threatening crisis, allowing Japan to exercise a collective self-defense, would depend on the specific circumstances of the actual event. However, China has repeated its demand that Takaichi retract her remarks, hinting at possible Japanese involvement in a Taiwan contingency. And as China's angry reaction continues over the Japanese Prime Minister's hypothetical remarks on a Taiwan crisis, a trilateral meeting with South Korea between culture ministers has been postponed. Now, other means of three-way diplomacy may be stalled as long as tensions continue. Our Oh Seong reports.
South Korea confirmed that this month's trilateral culture ministers meeting with Japan and China have been postponed. This comes as Beijing intensifies pressure on Tokyo over Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's remarks, suggesting that a Taiwan contingency could allow Japan to exercise collective self-defense. South Korea's Culture Ministry said Thursday it was notified by China earlier in the week that the trilateral ministers meeting scheduled for next Monday in Macau would be postponed. The annual high-level dialogue has been held since 2007 to support cultural exchange among the three countries. Beijing did not provide an official reason for cancelling the meeting, but the Chinese Foreign Ministry on Thursday expressed strong discontent linked to Takaichi's comments, saying her remarks grossly interfere in China's internal affairs, trample on international law and basic norms, and challenge the post-World War II international order. It further issued a travel advisory urging its citizens to avoid Japan, saw airlines refund Japan flights, and suspended imports of Japanese seafood after resuming them only this month. So far, Japan shows no signs of escalating the matter, sending a senior diplomat to Beijing and stating Tokyo remains open to dialogue and engagement. However, experts believe China will continue to pile on the pressure, discomfited by the Japanese leader's nationalistic roots and domestic support for her foreign policy.
So I expect that if Takaichi does not walk back her comments, which I don't think she will, right now her favorable ratings I think is at about 80% in Japanese society. So I don't think we're at the peak point. Actually, I think we're just starting. China's just starting in terms of the pressure that it's going to put on Japan.
With government-to-government exchanges showing strain, observers say continued tensions could delay Japan's push to host the next trilateral leaders summit due next month. Beijing on Thursday has already decided to drop the meeting between Takaichi and their Premier Lee Chang in South Africa this weekend during the G20. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
South Korea held its own memorial ceremony on Friday to honor Korean victims who were forced to work at these Sado Mines. The ceremony was held at a hotel on Sado Island in Japan's Niigata Prefecture, with 11 members from 7 Korean victims' families and the South Korean ambassador to Japan in attendance. Japan had pledged to hold an annual memorial event when the Sado Mines were inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2024. However, due to Tokyo's lack of sincerity and refusal to reflect on the coercive nature of the forced labor, Seoul held its own ceremony, separate from Japan's official one, for the second consecutive year. South Korean stocks closed sharply lower on Friday as renewed concerns over an artificial intelligence bubble weighed heavily on big-cap tech shares. Now, analysts predict that the volatility in the market may continue until the December FOMC meeting. Cha Yun-kyung reports.
South Korean stocks finished trading sharply lower on Friday, dragged down by heavy losses in major tech shares amid renewed valuation concerns about a potential AI bubble. The benchmark KOSPI tumbled 151.59 points, or 3.79%, to close at 3,853.26, as most large-cap shares drifted lower than in Thursday's session. Market bellwether Samsung Electronics dipped 4.13%, while chip giant SK Hynix retreated 7.88%. The local currency also slid to its weakest level in 7 months against the US dollar as foreigners offloaded large amounts of Korean equities. Overnight, U.S. stocks ended lower, with Nvidia leading the downturn despite posting robust quarterly earnings, as investors stayed cautious about the rapid surge in AI-linked stocks and their aggressive investment plans. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 0.84%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite sank 2.15%. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook called out a range of risks to the financial system on Thursday local time, including a collapse in historically elevated asset prices, which might have undermined investor sentiment. A researcher at Tower Securities projected that after Nvidia's earnings release, volatility and lingering caution over funding conditions for the market may continue until the December FOMC meeting. Cha Yun-kyung, Arirang News.
In other news, Samsung Electronics is tightening stability at the top while gearing up for its next wave of innovation, unveiling a leadership shakeup that restored its dual CEO system. Our Moon Jung has more.
Samsung Electronics has seemingly strengthened its corporate stability while preparing for its next phase of innovation. On Friday, the tech giant carried out a major top management reshuffle, restoring a dual CEO structure and elevating key technology leaders. The company promoted President Roh Tae-moon, who had been serving as acting head of the Device Experience or DX division, to be the official DX chief and a co-CEO of Samsung Electronics. Roh, who also leads the company's mobile business, will now share the helm with Vice Chairman Chun Young-hyun, the head of the Device Solutions division that oversees Samsung semiconductor operations.
As we enter the AI era, Samsung faces both challenges and opportunities, from the need for stronger memory chips to the growing demand for AI-powered smartphones. That's why the company is putting its trust in Jeon Young-hyun to lead the semiconductor division and Roh Tae-moon to steer mobile and consumer electronics. It's a leadership lineup that experts say is well matched to guide Samsung through this pivotal moment.
In a move to reinforce long-term research capabilities, Samsung also appointed Harvard professor Park Hong-gun to head the Samsung Advanced Institute of Technology. A leading figure in nanotechnology and quantum research, Park is expected to spearhead work on next-generation semiconductors, including quantum computing and neuromorphic chips. With its leadership now realigned and semiconductor performance improving, Samsung is focusing on stability rather than sweeping changes as it prepares for broader group-wide executive appointments in the coming weeks. Samsung has recently shown signs of recovery, driven by improving memory chip prices and rising demand for AI servers. Its earnings rebound has also lifted investor sentiment, with Samsung Electronics shares climbing in recent weeks to their highest levels of the year, a signal that markets are responding positively to the company's momentum for a turnaround. 문지영, 아리랑 뉴스.
Recently, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been visiting economic sites, from a hydropower plant launching ceremony to the regime's first modern hospital. Now, South Korea's Unification Ministry says he's trying to showcase his achievements ahead of the party congress. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un attended a ceremony on Thursday to launch the Hwaeyang Army People's Power Station in Gangwon Province. The sixth hydropower plant to be built in the region, the inauguration ceremony came amid a chronic electricity shortage. According to the Korean Central News Agency, Kim said this was a valuable achievement for the province in solving the power supply issues, despite a relatively small population and a weak industrial base compared to other provinces. Marking the last of 6 hydropower plants in Gangwon Province following the Icheon, Muncheon, Sepo, Pyeonggang, and Goseong County People's Power Stations. The newly built one is a small hydropower station that generates electricity using a small volume of water flow and a drop in elevation. The reason why the North puts emphasis on small-scale hydropower in provincial areas is because the farther the region is from Pyongyang, the worse the power shortages are. The Hwaeyang Power Station first appeared in Dodong-sinmun in June 2016, suggesting that the construction has taken at least 9 years. Kim's appearance in a leather jacket follows his visit to a ceremony to launch the first modern hospital, the Gangdong Country Hospital, on Wednesday. Regarding Kim making consecutive visits to economic sites, South Korea's Unification Ministry said it seems to showcase economic accomplishments ahead of the upcoming 9th Congress.
It is likely seen as an effort to consolidate the achievements of the 5-year National Economic Development Plan ahead of the year-end party plenary session and the 9th Party Congress.
At the 8th Party Congress in 2021, North Korea adopted a 5-year economic development plan and is expected to present another one soon, outlining its major policy stance. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
There are many reasons to wait for Fridays, and one of them is definitely the arts and culture coverage. We have our culture correspondent, Yeong, here in the studio. Happy Friday, Yeong.
Happy Friday, Tommy. Thank you for having me.
What do you have for us tonight?
Right, Tommy. So as Korea continues to deal with record low birth rates, many districts are rethinking how they can make their communities places where children can actually thrive. And one of the approaches that are gaining renewed attention is the UNICEF Child-Friendly Cities initiative. I decided to take a visit to Korea's very first child-friendly city, which is Seongbuk-gu district in Seoul, to see what the model looks like on the ground and also listen to what those actively participating in the initiative had to say about it. So let's go ahead and take a look together. A city where children are not only protected, but also heard, respected, and actively involved in shaping their communities. Under UNICEF guidelines, cities must show sustained progress in child participation in decisions that affect them, safety, access to culture and play, and child rights-based governance before receiving official child-friendly city certification. Over the past decade, South Korea's first child-friendly city, Seongbuk-gu, has expanded its youth councils, strengthened child participation in budgeting, and opened new child center community spaces. One of those spaces is the Seongbuk Youth Center, where young people gather to debate issues, draft proposals, and develop practical civic projects.
There are already many educational programs for children in Seongbuk-gu, but I think it's even more meaningful when children themselves can propose the kinds of education they feel they need.
Because places like the Youth Culture Center provide a safe environment with instructors and support for a variety of activities, I can really feel that Seongbuk-gu district respects and supports children in a meaningful way.
Here, children also learn confidence, communication skills, and the sense that their opinions matter.
The different experiences and encouragement they receive here will eventually become valuable resources in their lives when they need them. And importantly, they are no longer seen simply as beneficiaries in need of help, but as key members of the community who live and grow alongside us, and that's the foundation of creating a truly child-friendly culture.
UNICEF says the true measure of a child-friendly city lies in rights-based governance that treats children as full citizens. a priority made even more urgent by Korea's low birth rate.
Given the era of extremely low birth rates, creating child-friendly cities carries significance not only for advancing children's rights, but also as a key strategy for ensuring the long-term sustainability of our society and our country.
With more municipalities joining the initiative, South Korea aims to raise children on a foundation of respect and build communities where their voices are genuinely heard.
Those children look genuinely happy on the screen. Now, Yeong, it's a meaningful initiative. Then, what are some of the plans or things that Korean municipalities have to prioritize going forward?
Right, so South Korea has been working the UNICEF Child-Friendly Cities framework for more than a decade now, and we've seen a lot of meaningful progress from the expansion of youth councils to formal systems that allow children to actively participate in policy discussions. But sustaining this nationwide actually requires support beyond the local level. Child-friendly cities demand long-term resources, legal backing, and unified standards. So national level involvement is essential if all children, regardless of where they live, are to receive the same rights and opportunities.
You know, like I mentioned, they do look happy, but what do they really think? After all, their opinion really matters, right?
Right, it does. And on that, how about we hear directly from one of the students who also happens to be the chair of the Seongbuk Youth Council.
I think a child-friendly city is one where children can make their own choices and actively participate. We do have activities like our youth council, but only a small number of students get to experience that. To strengthen participation rights, I think we need more education and programs in familiar places like schools so that many more children can be involved.
Exactly. There's always room for improvement for our children to thrive for our future generations. Now, are there any other international models that South Korea can really learn from?
Yes, and this is actually something I discussed with the UNICEF official I spoke with. Okay. So countries like Iceland and Austria jointly operate the certification system with UNICEF as part of their national child rights policy. However, in Korea, certification is currently managed only by UNICEF Korea, which can put limits on how far local governments can go on their own. But UNICEF is now encouraging the central government to adopt a shared model as other countries have, so local efforts can be supported by national policy, funding, and legal structures. And this kind of partnership would really create a more consistent environment for children all across the country. And ultimately, the hope is that this will lead to stronger, more consistent policies and overall better environments for all children across the country.
I really hope so, Yeong. Thanks for coming in tonight.
And thank you for having me, Dami. The sky stayed generally clear around the country, so it was a good day to enjoy outdoor activities. However, the daily temperature range continues to be wide, so please take good care of your health not to catch a cold. The risk of wildfires is increasing in dry weather. A dry weather advisory is in place for areas around the East Coast, and the forest fire crisis warning is at caution level across the country. If you go hiking or camping this weekend, you should take extra precautions. Seoul will start off at 3 degrees tomorrow morning with 4 degrees in Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju. Daily highs will move up to 14 to 17 degrees across the country.
After a typical autumn condition this weekend, rain is forecast again starting from Monday. It will get cold again after the rain stops. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.